hoops.
DeMar DeRozan could be the next big NBA star to be traded. The Ringer reported that Orlando has expressed interest in getting DeRozan from the Spurs, and there is reason to believe that DeRozan and the Spurs may not last. Both Orlando and San Antonio's season have not started off well. They both look like they're not on their way to the playoffs, but instead to the lottery. And there is a trade to be had that would benefit both teams. Both teams want to go back to the playoffs. Orlando made it last year for the first time in a long time. And the Spurs, when they had Kawhi Leonard, could have torn the whole thing down, but instead they did accept DeRozan because they want to be a playoff team year in and year out. If they missed it this year, it would be the first time in 23 years. So there is a trade out there that could be beneficial to both teams, and we're going to talk about all the different scenarios to make the Spurs and the Magic better. Hey, I'm Casey Kiernan of AM Hoops. We're trying to get 50 likes on this video for DeMar DeRozan's shooting percentage this year. Plus, go ahead and hit subscribe for 3 weekly videos diving deep on NBA topics. And if you love the NBA and you want to go deep on the entire league, go check out the AM Hoops podcast Monday through Friday whenever you get up. Guaranteed, the podcast will be in your feed, and we go over every single game, every single night. So DeRozan got to San Antonio in a trade, a very emotional trade involving the Toronto Raptors. DeRozan did not want to be traded. He was taken away from a franchise he thought he was going to spend his entire career with, and one of his best friends in Kyle Lowry. However, he got to San Antonio and actually played well, but the Spurs were bounced in the first round of the playoffs. As for the Raptors, they got Kawhi Leonard as a rental, but they also got a championship, and Kawhi won Finals MVP. Yeah, I think they'll take that. At the time, the Spurs took DeRozan instead of trading with the Lakers. In that trade, they could have gotten Lonzo Ball, maybe Kyle Kuzma, definitely Josh Hart, Mo Wagner, and like 4 first-round and second-round picks. Oh, what could have been? Instead, they got DeMar DeRozan, and although he played well last year, like I said, bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and this year it looks like they might be lottery bound. Now, the key to all of this is that DeMar DeRozan has a player option for $27.7 million at the end of this year. That's a ton of money, but he could opt out, and he probably should opt out because the 2020 free agent class is super thin, and he's likely to get a max offer. That max offer doesn't look like it's coming from the Spurs because The Athletic reported that they are far apart in talks. So, if the Spurs don't trade DeMar DeRozan, he could walk for nothing, and a team like the Spurs, not a free agent destination, cannot afford to lose a player like DeRozan for absolutely nothing. Orlando could be that team that's going to offer him the big money, and they would want some assurance that DeRozan will re-sign there if they're going to give up a lot. But the fact that they are interested in DeRozan maybe means they think he would be willing to re-sign in Orlando. The offense isn't necessarily the problem in San Antonio. They were 7th in offense last year, 7th in offense this year. On the defensive end is where they have issues. In fact, at the time of the DeRozan report, their last 4 opponents had shot above 50%. Also for the Spurs, DeMar DeRozan is super talented, but the minutes that he's getting is creating a logjam of young talent behind him in that backcourt. Players like DeJounte Murray, Bryn Forbes, Derek White. I mean, Lonnie Walker's hardly getting any minutes, and Spurs fans were super excited to see what they would get from him. He averaged 30 points per game in the Summer League. And for the Orlando side, their defense isn't necessarily the problem. It's their offense. It's literally the worst or second worst in the league, depending on the metric that you choose. Either way you cut it, they're one of 2 teams that average under 100 points per game. Kind of hard to do in the 2019 NBA. When you look at the fit for Orlando, it works. DeRozan loves to shoot in the mid-range, and Orlando would let DeMar DeRozan be DeMar DeRozan. They were 3rd in the number of mid-range shots taken. Plus, he'd be a big upgrade in terms of who they have to be their playmaker. Currently, it's Evan Fournier or DJ Augustin. DeMar DeRozan, obviously, head and shoulders above those guys. And he works in the pick and roll with Nikola Vucevic. All right, so let's take a look at the trades that at least one of the sides would absolutely say no to. And the first one here involves a straight-up swap, Nikola Vucevic for DeMar DeRozan. Now, this one couldn't be done until later in the year because Vooch just signed that $100 million deal, but the money certainly works. Orlando says no to it because he may be their best player on offense as of now, and clearly they don't think that Mo Bamba is ready to start. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given Vooch that extension and that big money. And for the Spurs side of things, not so sure they would want Nikola Vucevic paired with LaMarcus Aldridge. That just kind of seems like a weird fit. The second thing that the Orlando Magic would definitely say no to is anything involving Jonathan Isaac. Isaac may be their best player right now. He's definitely their best young player. He's a good developing big man on offense, and we know how good he is defensively. He had 6 blocks in a game this year. I think Orlando hangs up the phone before R.C. Buford could even get the words Jonathan Isaac out of his mouth. Now, I think the Spurs would say no to anything involving Markelle Fultz. I know that's one thing that a lot of people have thrown out there on Twitter and elsewhere, but the fact that the Spurs already have that young talent in the backcourt just doesn't make sense. Plus, Fultz, kind of a poor man's DeJounte Murray anyway. All right, so what are the trades that potentially both sides would say yes to? Trade number 1, Aaron Gordon and DJ Augustin for DeMar DeRozan. Now, as soon as I say Aaron Gordon, Orlando thinks about hanging up the phone, but I think this is one that they could be talked into. Why? Because Aaron Gordon is still sort of a project. The feeling is around the league that despite being in the league for so many years, he has not hit his ceiling. Will he ever hit his ceiling? That may be in the back of the minds of the Orlando Magic front office. For the Spurs, he's just 24 years old. He's owed $34.5 million over the next 2 seasons, which is affordable, and he is a good fit at power forward with their younger, talented players in the backcourt. Also, he takes enough three-pointers to space out the floor. He doesn't make a ton of them, but he takes enough to make the defense respect that, and he would open up spacing for the likes of DeJounte Murray. Trade number 2, Mo Bamba, Evan Fournier, and a first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan. Mo Bamba shoots threes, and he's good on defense, and we already know how badly the Spurs need D right now. Again, this is a guy that's looked at as a project, and clearly the Magic believe more in Nikola Vucevic as their present and their near-term future, otherwise they wouldn't have given him that deal. Maybe the former number 6 overall pick can unlock all of that potential by returning to the Lone Star State where he went to college and joining the San Antonio Spurs organization. Evan Fournier makes the salary work. He returns a veteran presence in the backcourt since you have one leading in DeMar DeRozan, and that salary is coming off the books at the end of this year. Trade number 3, Aaron Gordon, again, this time Al-Farouq Aminu is thrown in. We already talked about Aaron Gordon, why that makes sense, though it would take some convincing, but Al-Farouq Aminu works on defense. It's part of the reason that the Portland Trail Blazers are hurting right now because they lost Mo Harkless, Al-Farouq Aminu. Now they don't have their defensive identity. CJ and Dame are having to do all sorts of work along with their offensive work, but that's another video. Al-Farouq Aminu would fit perfectly into the Spurs defensive system. Now the first round picks speak for themselves in this. It's part of the rebuilding that the Spurs clearly need to do whether they want to or not. Whether the Magic would part with those picks, we don't know, but clearly the Spurs would ask for them, and the Magic own their future first and second round picks. Look, the bottom line in all of this is that 40% of the league was a free agent last summer. Orlando and San Antonio were not involved in any of the big free agent moves, and it looks like they may have been left behind and may be bound for the lottery if they don't do something. Now, for the Spurs side of things, we never know what R.C. Buford or Greg Popovich is going to do, so it makes it hard to project. But the fact that the Orlando Magic are definitely interested in DeMar DeRozan means that a trade could be in the making.
Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a weekly NBA video.